Previously on That Thing I Do.
What's that?
This is the remote control that will let me blow up any missile in the world.
You're mad.
Am I? Am I?
Yes! Very mad!
Equilibrium is brilliant, and Villa is God!
My God. Film Brian, they've gotten to you!
Hey, it's Film Brain.
Perhaps it is you who are mad.
No, it's definitely you.
You're not taking over my show, Continuity Alarm! You just stay back! Stay back!
The future? It's horrible, Linkara. Everybody went to see the Youngblood movie, and we all got the disease.
What do you think of Hollywood?
Hollywood? Well, that's where all the great movies are made.
Well, how would you feel if it just disappeared? And tell me, what do you think about Rome?
Rome? It's the birthplace of culture!
Not anymore! And tell me, what do you think of France?
It's okay.
Gone!
That wasn't the right clip. And now the conclusion. Greetings, YouTubers, it's your illustrious lady, Rouge One Full here. So, the second and what I think is the biggest problem with Marvel cartoons now, yes, even bigger than that whole diatribe I went on that took 15 minutes of your time. Oops. But first, some context. I was watching what I thought was the final season of Avengers Assemble because it had all the elements of a final season. But according to the wiki, they got renewed for another one. Which is sort of right. It's more of a spin-off than a real sequel. I might review it eventually. We had Thor and Jane Foster's Thor, who, no, I don't care that they changed her origin for the show, because I don't think the kiddies can handle a topic like a hero getting cancers, and not even with the power of a god, it still doesn't mean that you're going to be cured, and you end up dying anyway, spoilers. And no, I don't have a problem with the female Thor, because this is not the first time someone other than Thor has had the mantle of Thor. Both of them were fighting Loki, and he poisoned Yggdrasil, the World Tree, and if it goes, the universe goes. So on paper, the stakes literally can't be higher. The Thors are fighting Loki, OG Thor trying to talk Loki out of it, and the universe can end a horrible, fiery, painful, disintegrating death at any moment. This should work. On paper anyway. Execution-wise, it doesn't. I was watching this, and this realization swept over me. I was bored. Yeah, really bored. The fighting wasn't interesting in the slightest. And then I realized I'm bored for most of these action scenes. Unlike certain YouTubers that will make videos about how non-action oriented cartoon fights are not the best composition-wise, and that somehow makes them worse because of it, even though they aren't action cartoons, so it's more excusable, and complain about shot versus shots, using clips of people just talking, so really, what do you expect? But the few fights we do get here are still more entertaining to me than the fights we get in Marvel cartoons lately. Nah, fuck it, I'm not being subtle. Steven Universe is not an action-oriented cartoon show, so when we do get fight scenes, you can tell that they're trying to make it entertaining. But hey, if you want professionalism, enjoy this latest Marvel action cartoon show that has nothing but static shots, uses a ton of shaky cam to simulate fast movement because the budget isn't there to actually animate fast movement and change angles constantly, a method that is used in some of the worst animes out there. Is that better? Point being, the action sucks, and considering that you're an action cartoon show, you failed at your one job. And it's not like action and Marvel cartoons sucked before, just look at any of the cartoons made in the 2000s and some of the 90s ones.
Flame on, flame on, and on, and on, and on, flame on.
I said some of the 90s ones! Ultimate Spider-Man's action was pretty good and stayed consistent throughout its run, so I'm gonna leave it alone. It's pretty much the exception to the rule for post-EMH Marvel cartoon shows. I really didn't have a problem with most of the action. So I think I know the reason why the action has been pretty boring these last few years. It's these fucking backgrounds. They honestly feel way more limiting than the typical hand-painted background, and considering they look semi-3D, that shouldn't be possible. It's like the animators were given 5 angles per scene that they were allowed to work with, and that's it. They can't really move the camera around. They can't make interesting angles that work with the set amount of scenes that they're allowed to use. The Guardians cartoon, I feel like, is the worst offender of this. Their space battles feel slow, boring, and confined, even though they're in space. But I feel like if they went too far, they'd hit the end of the set. They're so static and realistic looking, but also blurry at the same time. Not only do the characters not really look right standing there, the weight of their punches really don't land, especially since they use shaky cam all the time. It's really noticeable that they're trying to cover their asses. On top of the fact that the characters can get smacked up against walls, which happens all the time in these shows, but because the backgrounds look so radically different from the characters, it doesn't really look like it hurts. And no, I'm not exaggerating. Just look at any Marvel cartoon and you can say, yeah, the characters look like they inhabit the same space as their environment. Hell, you shouldn't even have to think that because it should be natural. But the new ones, take any shot from any of the new shows and you can easily see the characters look like they were photoshopped poorly onto the background. None of them look right. They don't look like they inhabit the same space. I mean, just look at this. I know they're never going to eat this food in the foreground, but you could attempt to make it look like they inhabit the same space. For the love of God, Hulk goes to get more popcorn, but there's some right there, and there's clearly food in it. You're not even trying. But as far as fight scenes go, there are ways to make the fights look more dynamic and cool looking. Draw more backgrounds to get better angles like tracking shots. Just look at Attack on Titan when Eren uses his ODM gear for the first time. You literally feel like you're flying, and honestly, I get a bit motion sick from looking at it, but it's too beautiful not to look at. The other way is to draw action lines so you don't have to worry about drawing a ton of backgrounds and it helps simulate fast movement. Or you can animate your characters along with the backgrounds. Sure, it's more work, but used correctly and it can make for some memorable moments. But to really prove my point, we're going to look at a few examples from Avengers Assemble, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Spectacular Spider-Man. So the first clip will be Avengers Assemble, where Vision first shows up and the Avengers are fighting a different android.
As men of metal go, this one is quite resilient.
But I'm happy to come to your assistance.
You can't evade us forever, robot.
Iron Man, by what criteria do you designate me a friend? Low density intangibility is a more practical option.
So, what did you think of that clip? Did that fight feel like it had any sort of impact whatsoever? No? Why? As I explained before, the characters don't look like they inhabit the same space. But the bigger problem in this particular fight scene is the shaky cam. It lasts way too long with each blow. Whoever's in charge of moving the camera around, you kind of suck at your job. I'm sorry, but you do. None of the use of shaky cam looks like it enhances the blows. What was the thought process? If I shake the camera longer, the punches will feel like they have an even greater impact. Well, if that's what you thought, you failed. Now let's look at shaky cam done correctly.
No witnesses down here.
Now, of course, this fight is a bit more different fundamentally than the first clip. It's one-on-one, we have a limited space to work with, but you do see a difference. The punches had more weight, right? Even without the sound effects and just the opera music laid over, you still feel the weight of the punches. Spider-Man legitimately looked like he was getting hurt. And that's because this show's use of shaky cam is shorter, and if you look closely you can see the camera move with each blow emphasizing it more. Now before you say, but Hulk and Thor are doing more of the fighting. Yes, I know, but neither one of them are impervious to pain. They can take damage, but it doesn't mean that nothing hurts. Not to mention that they make it apparent to say that the robot guy is kinda difficult to beat, even for the god and rampaging monster of the group. But let's move on. See how we're stuck at this semi-low angle shot and the camera moving ever so slightly to bring Gamora back into frame? No angle changes, no dynamic camera movement, hell, not even fast movement from the characters themselves. It's just a slow, boring, muted color fight. Side note, oh my god, I just realized something. The whole show is muted in its color palette. Guardians of the Galaxy is literally the most brightly colored Marvel movie, and the cartoon by comparison, yikes. What happened? Just look at this poster. It's the first one that came out. And then you look at the second poster, and honestly, this second one's the lie. It makes the characters look bright and colorful and would have shading, but then you look at the actual show and none of that actually exists. This clip I used is from a frozen planet where it's supposed to look more muted in color, but honestly, it's not much different than the normal color palette we get. Now, back to your regularly scheduled program. I mean, we see pillars in the background. Wouldn't it have been nice if the camera followed Gamora around using the pillars to show how fast and agile she was? Or maybe just have her move a bit quicker? Now, I'm not saying that a fight at one angle can't be interesting. One of my favorite animated fights is from Boondocks, Freeman vs. Stinkmeaner. Most of that fight happens at one angle too. Even if I splice out the parts where they did change angles, then you still have an interesting fight because the characters are moving in fast, interesting, and yes, dynamic ways. Just look at how many blows they get off compared to Gamora, who looks like she's moving at a snail's pace. Now for the next clip.
No! The power I wield, you are nothing compared to me!
Okay, look! You can actually see the buildings being destroyed instead of just being tossed and then boom, crater.
I'm stronger than all of you! I'm the strongest one there is! You sure about that?
That was 7 seconds. We haven't even gotten to the actual fight and it looks way cooler than what Gamora's doing. I mean, just quickly breaking it down, we have Hulk landing and you can feel the impact because it's shaky cam used properly, plus the amount of debris he kicks up from his landing. The smug smirk he gives when Graviton says he's the strongest one there is, which, if you live in the Marvel universe, just stop saying that. Hulk will always hear you, and summarily beat you down to prove you wrong. Part of the building underneath him is being crushed, meaning he's putting a lot of force and power just winding up his jump. And when he spears Graviton, there's such a powerful shockwave that it destroys the glass windows on the block and the concrete below. And before some of you say, it's not fair to compare the two, I'm comparing an interesting fight to a non-interesting one. At the end of the day, she is Gamora, daughter of Thanos, the Mad Titan. She's known as the deadliest woman in the universe. Her fights should always be interesting, no matter how quick or simple they are. It's an action cartoon. You have one job, and that's to make your fights interesting and cool. If you can't do that, then you failed. So, what's the solution? Well, stop connecting the shows together. It only causes massive problems with continuity if you've been watching them for as long as I have, or just feel like binging all the cartoons. When one thing gets cancelled, and then they show up in another show again a few months later, just don't have all the previous elements show up from the previous show still be in continuity with any other things that they've crossed over with before. And I'm sorry, Ultimate Spider-Man, this is where you stop being the exception to the rule because you started this by showing up in EMH, Avengers Assemble, and Agents of Smash. Remember Spider-Man, the animated series? There were team-ups with Iron Man, the X-Men, Captain America, the Punisher, Blade, and the Fantastic Four. They were all cool because of how uncommon it was, and it led to some of the best episodes in the series. So when the Beyonder decided to pick good against evil and Spidey picked all those heroes that he had teamed up with in previous episodes, it felt like an event. Because it was. But now, team-ups are a dime a dozen. Spidey 2017, do you know how long it took before another superhero showed up? 8 episodes. In the first season. That's just 2 months after you started. Do you have any faith in your title character? But I'm answering my own question. Of course you guys don't. You guys set up Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, and... who the hell is that? Anya Corazon? Really? Awesome! I might take back every negative thing I said. If you're ever curious where this image comes from, well, this is it, the character Aranya. Go ahead, read her solo series after you watch this video, of course. But she is the first Latina superhero, and she's criminally underrated. Her powers are magic-based, not science. She also has a kick-ass magic tattoo that forms into really awesome armor. Alright, let me see that beautifully simple but unique costume on screen. Fuck, are you kidding me? They used that stupid generic costume! Oh my god! Please tell me they got her name right. What are they calling her? No, they're not. No, they're not. She's a Latina! Her name is the Spanish word for spider. Why would they do this? I don't care. It was stupid there too. A bunch of the heroes got lazy and didn't want to learn her actual superhero name, and they just kept calling her that. And for some reason, she just accepts it. It's also confusing because we already have a Spider-Girl who's been around a lot longer who hasn't gotten the proper love she needs. No, I am not counting that. It's a gender bent episode. It's not the actual thing. Please, please tell me that her powers are still magic-based. Please tell me she still has her spider grapple hook that she used because she didn't have webs.
Fail! You fail! How do you screw this up?
I take back nothing. In fact, take what I said and multiply my negativity times 10. Don't even attempt to use any part of her origin story. Just stick with what's currently in the comics, even though the decision they've made for this character for the last 6 years have sucked. Screw her unique character, screw her unique powers, her unique situation as a hero, her unique names. Just stick with the shit we've already seen before. Vanilla tastes like basic bitch. You people have no faith in your title characters, so have to keep shoving in others and doing it poorly. In Spider-Man the Animated Series, we got our first team up in the 2nd season, and they didn't compromise the origins while doing it. So screw you guys, this can be done properly. Team-ups aren't special anymore, and it's not nearly as cool as it used to be because every superhero is getting multiple of them in their first season. Creative decisions like this can just go fucking burn!
Hey Grover, do you want to review comic books? Why isn't there more? Why isn't there more? I sacrificed my voice for this episode!
No, Star-Lord. I am your father.
You know what? I'm just giving in. Team Pilo all the way. Why aren't you real? Why aren't you real? It's just a piggy bank. Ooh, lavender.
Okay, now calm down, I think. So, keep the shows as separate as possible and just let them be its own thing. If you're gonna do crossovers, make them rare. There's a reason why people were so excited about Deadpool showing up in Ultimate Spidey a few years ago. That's because Deadpool hasn't been animated in anything prior since the 2000s. Stop using major villains like Thanos and Ultron, and use more characters that aren't going to show up in the movies. Or at least, characters that aren't really going to make a big impact one way or the other, because once again, you guys tend to kill them off as quickly as they get there. Change these god-awful backgrounds into something more manageable so the characters can actually look like they inhabit the same space and you can actually use it to your advantage. Because honestly, no matter how realistic they look, they also look cheap at the same time. It's like a bad Photoshop job, and Photoshop can be very easy to screw up. Well, that's all I got. God, this took a lot longer than I expected, but thank you for making it to the end. Do you agree with me? Are there any major problems with the newest Marvel cartoons that you think I missed? What are your thoughts on the new Marvel cartoons altogether? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Later days.
My heart is full of hatred and loathing for your ugly faces and stupid clothing. Like I said, I hate you jerks. What a bunch of stupid jerks. I'll smack you up and stomp you down. I'll stomp you back to Ugly Town, or maybe